Good morning, as everyone is coming into the room. Great to be with you today from iPlan Global. Very warm welcome. Thank you for registering, making sure that you are actually here. So my name is Dalian. I represent the iPlan team, and I'm welcoming you and giving you the house rules as we move forward. This event is called Decision Makers of Manufacturing Companies in SA are blinded and need answers. Couple of things to keep in mind. Please keep your videos on. It helps us to interact and make sure that you are also present and that there are not other distractions. It's really a phenomenal opportunity with the information that will be shared, the questions that you can ask today, to make sure that you engage and that you spend this time here. We are recording this meeting. You will not be shown in the recording. We are spotlighting the speakers, the individuals, so please do not be concerned or worried about that. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dave Butler. And just before I do that, I want to remind you, keep your questions and you can type them in the chat box. Keep them for the end. We will definitely handle them there. In the meantime, as you go, you're welcome to type them into the chat box. So Dave Butler, Dave is the General Manager of the Strategic Solutions Business Unit at iPlan Global, and he has over 3 decades of experience in his field. He leads one of the largest dedicated CISPRO teams in the world. Dave and his key team members are here today. And Dave, first you are going to introduce Dr. Aubrey Pienaar, our keynote speaker for today. So over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Darlene. Yes, Dr. Aubrey Pienaar is the chairman of iPlan. Aubrey's career spans academic, professional, and business pursuits. He has worked as a line manager in manufacturing, published 3 books on business systems, and is the founder of iPlan. He implemented his first business system on a mainframe computer in 1983 and has been doing this ever since. He is recognized internationally as an expert on how to implement ERP effectively and efficiently, and how to leverage a business system implementation to transform businesses large and small. Over to you, Aubrey.
Thank you, Dave, and good day to everybody. Yogi Berra was famous for a lot of quips, and the one I'd like to highlight today was when he said, if you don't know where you're going, you might wind up someplace else. For the people in this online discussion this morning, probably a lot of CEOs, CFOs, COOs, executive team members, C-suite, whatever you call yourselves, the people who have to make the big decisions in your businesses. This is what we are addressing. By big decisions, I mean, for example, should we lay off people, maybe because of a pandemic or because we think that a line of business may be unprofitable, or is it unprofitable? Or should we hire more people and spend money on equipment and stock up on strategic stock because another line of business we think is about to boom, or is it? The problem is that the people who have to make these decisions often just don't have the information that is needed to make good, solid decisions. So they have to rely on things like gut feel or number of years of experience. But the reality is that you're often flying blind. And the decisions that you make might just have your business end up someplace else. What you really want is, if you need to make these big decisions, is to have relevant and accurate information on which you can apply your years of experience, your gut feel, your expertise, and so on. But the input needs to be relevant and accurate. By relevant, I mean, if I refer back to the examples here, what was our sales in the recent past? What were the financial numbers, the costs, and so on? Right now, what do we have in inventory? What are the orders that we have in hand? What are our expectations of new sales in the days, weeks, months to come? This information is typically held in what we call a business system, both the past information, the current information, and our expectations of the future. The underlying technology of that business system can be anything from pieces of paper, documents, scribbles on a whiteboard on the wall. Excel spreadsheets are very common where we find this kind of information. And in the industry, we've seen ERP systems with databases where all of this is kept. So if you need to make the big decision, you don't want to be blind. You want to have that accurate and relevant information. And blind or blinded really leaves you in the same place. Let me use an analogy. If you stumble around in the dark and it's pitch dark and you can't see where you're going, you're blind. If you have a flashlight shining in your eyes, you can't see either. There's too much light and it's coming directly at you, or multiple flashlights, then you're blinded. Either way, you have a problem when you need to make decisions because you don't have that relevant and accurate information. Let me position a few examples to see whether that resonates with you, the people who are in on this discussion. So I'd like you to imagine a situation. We have the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the decision makers of a business, and they gather in a bedroom. I was going to say, apologies for that, a boardroom. Yeah, let's focus on what we have there. In a boardroom, they need to make one of those big decisions that we referred to earlier. Lay off people, appoint more people, spend more money, save more money. But they're looking for the information and they don't have that information because Mr. X or Miss X, the person who usually in this organization provides all the information coming out of the business system, is not there. Can't be there, or nobody knows why that person is not there. And therefore, they have a problem making the decision because they don't have the relevant and accurate information. Why is this a problem? Why is there in the first place, is it necessary to have a Mr. or Miss X to provide the information out of your business system? Well, what we often find is the way the business system is set up is so complex that it is virtually inaccessible for people at the top level of the organization. They don't know where to look. They are unable to gather the information for themselves. They need to have Mr. or Miss X in there. Or it could be that the information can't be used in the raw format that it comes out of the business system. It has to be manipulated. It has to be added, subtracted, and so on until you have the relevant and accurate information that you need. It could also be that your business system is actually not a single system, but it consists of multitudes of systems. There's a little finance system. There's something separate keeping track of stock. There are a few pieces of paper that keeps track of the orders. There are purchase orders that are sitting on a filing system somewhere else that doesn't talk to anything else. And if you need information in order to make one of those big decisions, somebody, Mr. or Mrs. X, needs to pull all this together before the executive team can make a decision. There's a problem, of course, here that apart from not being able to make that decision, this business is overly reliant, not just the executive team, on Mr. or Miss X. If the proverbial bus should hit this person, why is that person not in the boardroom as we speak? Well, because he or she was involved in an accident this morning and she's lying in hospital. And that would immediately put the business in trouble. Also, of course, the business can be held hostage. In fact, on a personal note, I once worked with a company where in that geographic area, there were only 2 competitors in that industry, just 2 companies. All I had to do was to offer a huge amount of money to employ Mr. X away from that company, and they would immediately be in serious trouble. So the example that I'm describing here is that the company is blind. They cannot make their decisions. The executives can't make their decisions because this person is just not there. Okay, different scenario. Again, the CEO, the CFO, the COO, they gathered in the boardroom. They need to make a big decision. They're looking at information, and that information cannot possibly be right. Now, what do they do? Let me tell you a personal story. At one point in my career, I was on the executive team of a manufacturing facility, and it was an assembly kind of business, and I was responsible for production and inventory planning and control in the warehouse and those kind of things. So my office was on the other side of the factory floor from where the administrative offices were. Then one day I was summoned to attend an executive meeting because we needed to make a very big decision, since the work in process numbers were going through the roof. And at the meeting, the financial manager presented us with something like 2 or 3 times the normal work in process at the end of last month. And it was obviously out of control, and we needed to decide whether we're going to throttle production until we could clear the work in process out, which would be a tough decision to make, or should we employ a second shift to try and clear the backlog, which would be an expensive option. And while we were still doing that, I kept thinking, you know what, I just walked to this boardroom through the factory floor, and I didn't see this work in process. It wasn't there. So if we have excessive work in process, where is it? And often in a situation like that, you look at the information, and what it's telling you cannot possibly be right, as in the situation that I've just described. It cannot possibly be right. So what you have is information that your CEO, CFO, and so on are looking at, but that information is wrong. And now what do you decide? Do you do that second shift? What do you do? Third scenario. So let's go through the same sequence again. The CEO, the CFO, and the CEO are gathered in the boardroom, and they need to make one of those big decisions. Do we lay off people? Do we hire more people? Do we invest money? Do we try and save money? And they're being presented with information on which to base those decisions. But there are a number of people who are presenting the information, and they're all giving different versions. So again, let me go with a personal story. Where I was in a meeting where a decision needed to be made to either kill a particular product line because it was the sales were not what we expected it to be, or to actually invest more because the sales is really showing an upward trend and we think it's going to boom in the near-term future. So which is it? Obviously, you need to know what was the sales for the last weeks, months, however long a period, and what is the trend? Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What's going on here? So we have a few presentations, and the production manager did a presentation and showed us that the numbers were actually increasing and increasing rapidly over the last few weeks of the last month, and therefore the appropriate decision would be to invest more because we have a booming business here. The financial manager was up next, and he made a presentation, and he showed that the sales were nowhere near what we wanted it to be, and therefore the appropriate decision would be to terminate this, or at least not invest any more money. And the sales manager had a third presentation with numbers somewhere else. So now we have the CEO, the CFO, the COO, the people who have to make the decisions. They blinded because they have 3 different versions of essentially the same number. What was our sales? This is really a combination of the previous 2 scenarios that I sketched, because somebody needs to pull the numbers together, Mr. X and Miss X, and the one where the information couldn't possibly be right. Excuse me. In this case, obviously, if there are 3 different people reporting on last month's sales numbers, then they can't all be right because they're coming up with different numbers. So which one of them have the right numbers, or are all 3 of them wrong? The CEO, CFO, COO are blinded. They cannot make appropriate decisions. And they're in the same situation. Just as a matter of interest, let me elaborate a little bit on that last scenario. How can it be that these people give such different numbers? Well, in the particular example that I quoted, it was a real life example. It turned out that the production manager looked at every product that he had finished making the last month and shipped. It was a make to order business. So what we make is what we sell. And those were the numbers that he downloaded from the business system, and that he then manipulated in an Excel spreadsheet to show trends and graphs and so on. And that's how he made his numbers. He also used for financial numbers the standard list price of the products to show how much money we're making. Now, the sales manager looked at everything that we shipped to customers at the actual prices that we sold, not the list price. And he also subtracted from that a fairly large number in that business of returns, where we shipped the wrong item or a customer didn't want that anymore. So he had sales at different prices minus some other numbers, and he came up with different numbers. The financial manager looked at actual sales, didn't look at returns, but his financial month end was at the 25th of the month, whereas the production manager let everything run to the last day of the month, the 30th or the 31st or so on. So those three Excel spreadsheets really came up with different numbers, and it left the CEO, COO, CFO blinded in all of these situations. So what you really need, what these executive people need, is they need accurate and relevant information, and they need one source of information that they can trust. A single source of information that's readily accessible, where they don't have to rely on a Mr. or Mrs. X on that. Excel does not give you that. For that, you need the reliability of an ERP with a database. I'm going to hand over back to Dave and ask him to elaborate a little bit on this spreadsheet versus a database item. Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Aubrey. Excel is a good tool, but it's not a data storage tool. Just an interesting fact. Excel was released in 1985, and the SQL database tool was released in the 1970s. Individuals in business use Excel in their day-to-day activities, and these Excel workbooks grow and become very complex, with calculations extending over multiple sheets, multiple columns within the sheets. There's no version control, and you end up with different versions across the company. This results in no single source of the truth when it comes to the data you rely on to make business decisions. Touching on what Aubrey said, you have that one person who has built this workbook over time, and that if that person were to leave or is not available, nobody else in the business is able to maintain that workbook, and you're blinded. Month-end processing takes days for your finance team to consolidate captured worksheets. Paul, you're a cost accountant, you should know. Can you give us an example of when you had to do data consolidation across many sheets?
So as a cost accountant in a previous company, I usually took the open database connections, the ODBC connection, and linked it into Excel. I had a few issues. The one was it was very slow, and it was not always updated. And the extra issue around it was stored on my personal computer. So if anything would have happened to my personal computer, what would have happened to the data? And of course, I did some manipulations to actually get the management accountants in order. So Dave, what do I need to have one source of the truth, data integrity, and how I achieve this?
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, enterprise resource planning systems, ERP. ERP is a software package that allows a company to manage day-to-day activities such as accounting, procurement, compliance, and supply chain operations. Basically, the ERP covers all three business areas: finance, manufacturing, and distribution in one package. Some of the ERP systems have additional functionalities such as customer relationship management, warehouse management systems, and maybe a host of other functionality. An ERP system should provide for external systems to be able to integrate by an integration tool. That's probably the most important aspect of an ERP system, apart from the data collation and collecting it into your database. These data tools, they validate this data and ensures the integrity of your data. And it's that whole thing about garbage in, garbage out. I'm going to ask Renchu, who heads up the development team in our iPlan Strategic Solutions business unit, to provide an example of an integration where this has actually solved the problem.
Hi, Dave. Yes, thank you. The example I want to give relates to stock levels and a decision-making team that didn't have an idea of how much stock they actually had. This client we had, basically, they received stock with trains. So the train would come in, and then when the train arrived, the operators would use these really, it's like small cards that they wrote the train number on, as well as the carriage number, and then the tonnage that happened. And each of these carriages would have their own little card. So then they offloaded the train into silos, and then empty trucks would come, go over a weighbridge. Once again, a manual action would happen where the operator would write down the registration number of the truck and the empty tonnage of the truck. Then the truck would go in, it would get filled, and when it comes out, the operator would just take the weight from the weighbridge when it's filled again and write it down on the same form. So all of these job cards and those little cards and the dispatch notes would then be handed to people who would go and capture all of this data into a spreadsheet. Several problems with this occurred because basically what happened was some of the cards or the documents would get lost. Not everything would be captured. The people that's capturing the receipt document would capture it in one spreadsheet, and the dispatch operators would capture it in another spreadsheet. So you will have your received stock in one spreadsheet and the dispatch in the other one, and you had to do a manual action to determine how much stock is now really left in the silo. Then also capturing errors happened. They would capture, like, let's say 43 tons instead of 34 tons. I mean, it happens. Those things, if you're in a hurry, that happens. And then it took sometimes it took weeks to capture the data into the spreadsheet. So the data wasn't real time. The decision makers never knew were they working with real-time data. They never knew how much stock was really in the silos. So what we helped them with to solve these problems was we implemented scanners, and we integrated with the scanner and the weighbridge software. So what happened now, when the train came in, those tonnages would be captured immediately into the ERP system. When the trucks came in and went out, those would be integrated to the ERP system. And all of a sudden, all of your data was in one data source. So the ERP system actually calculates your inventory stock. And yeah, the accuracy of the data was solved because it integrates directly from the systems. No human intervention or capturing problems there. No documents that's getting lost somewhere, if I can put it that way, and the data was real time. It's immediate. So the integrations ran immediately, and all of those problems were solved. So at that stage, the decision makers could really trust their reports. They could make real-time decisions. They didn't have to guess what's going on in their business. And I think all I can actually say at this stage then is, well, I think everyone just lived happily ever after.
Thanks, Rencha. So, additional to the integration capability, an ERP should also provide for a user-friendly interface. Remember, users spend 8 hours plus a day capturing data into an ERP system. And that user interface must not make their jobs any more painful. Both the UI and the integration tool ensures data is now accurately entered into the database. A database is a storage facility built specifically to store data in a way that is quick and easy to access. Once the data is in the database, the data together with your ERP system will provide you with improved security and accessibility of your data, allowing for segregation of duties, improved visibility. When was an order placed? When was it shipped? Controlled costs, have an accurate picture of cost versus margins. Increased client satisfaction, that's improved inventory and shop floor visibility, improves accuracy. Balance, what is your supply versus demand? Do we reduce or increase inventory? Faster closing of month end, automatically process transactions and generate an order trail and reports. Reduce lead times. Better scheduling ensures you focus on priorities, leading to shorter lead times. And this is just a few that he's mentioned. ERP systems also come with standard set of reports, and you have the opportunity of writing custom reports or purchasing an off-the-shelf external tool with nice dashboard visuals. Once you have the accurate data, these tools produce visibility of your operation from one source of the truth.
Okay, so Dave, I just want to add here that you're basically saying that ERP systems will assist companies, in summary, with improving internal business processes, improve company performance, improve the interaction between internal employees and external organizations, and give you the power to make better decisions on real-time data.
That's correct, Renal. And there's many other benefits, such as long-term benefits. Your ERP vendor is continuously improving on the product, adding to the depth and the breadth of the product, and also keeping abreast of the technologies. This frees you up to concentrate on running your business instead of wondering if you're keeping ahead of your competition from a technology point of view. At this point, people sitting in the audience who have been through who have not been through an ERP implementation are probably thinking, let's go out and get an ERP system. This will solve all the problems that have been mentioned and many more that you've experienced. The people in the audience who have been through an implementation will probably smile when I say, ERP systems are painful to implement and are costly. But having been through that pain, you probably agree it was definitely worth it. I would say before deciding on an ERP system, do your homework.
Okay, so I just want to stop you again there, Dave. So let's say a company do decide they want to get an ERP, they want to do their homework. What should they look out for when selecting an ERP? Because there's many things that that's very important that they actually should look at. What are those points?
Well, just I'd say breadth and depth of the ERP system. Is it a good fit for your requirements, your business requirements? Does it tick all the boxes of your needs and wants? Flexibility, does the ERP allow for customizations or third-party software that addresses maybe one of the tick boxes that wasn't ticked? Scalability, am I able to increase the number of users? Or maybe next year I want to expand my product offering. Mobility, can you use your handheld device to retrieve information? For example, you're on holiday or on the golf course and you quickly want to check what the latest sales figures were, or answer a query on a status of an order. There are many other things to take into consideration, like cost, the dollar rand exchange, if it is based in dollar based costing. But these are only a few things that I've touched on due to the limited time that we have for this webinar. This discussion was about being blinded and not being able to make decisions. If you want 2020 vision to make better decisions, iPlan can help you to take the step in the right direction. There is a document with additional information that Nico has posted the link in the chat box. The document will explain what we at iPlan do to assist with people, processes, and systems. Please click on that link for more information. If you want to book an appointment with us to take the next steps, please click on the second link, which Nico has also posted in that chat box. Thank you, and please feel free to ask questions.
So in the meantime, thank you, Dave, and thank you to the iPlan team and for the interaction. Who has any questions? Anything that you'd like to know, you're welcome to type it up. If you do not wish to ask the question out from your side. Any questions? So if there are no questions, or while you are thinking, I just want to ask, what is the next step? If you are not sure, because there were so many things mentioned in terms of an ERP system should have these qualities, etc. But if I really don't know and I want additional advice, Dave, what should I do?
I would say contact us and let us come and speak to you. We can have a look at what your requirement is. We have very qualified consultants, both industrial engineers and accounting consultants. And we can actually come and talk to you or walk the floor with you, have a look at your pain, and give you an honest answer on how to correct that issue.
Thank you so much, Dave. I see there's a comment that was posted. I'm just going to read it out because it was directed, so it's not in the chat box, from one of the delegates saying, I will refer some contacts. We have a lot of systems in place, but it's a little disjointed. So as mentioned, single source of information is vital. Very, very important point. I'll get to another comment now as well. If I can just ask, disjointed versus one system, is there a true benefit?
Look, I would say that I would be very surprised if you found one ERP system that ticks all the boxes. So you would look at, for example, there might be a requirement for better quoting, and the ERP system is just maybe cumbersome or doesn't cater for that. So look for a third-party off-the-shelf system and integrate it, but it must have that capability. And that's why I say one of the most important aspects of an ERP system is to have that integration capability. And then you can purchase off-the-shelf products, bring them into, make your business flow better, or to address one of the tick boxes that weren't ticked. And that data then still ends up in the same database, and you have one single source of truth. And that's what it's all about. Is you can have many other segregated systems, but that data must come all together to one source that you can actually then report out of and know that your data is accurate.
Dalian, if I may add to that, just add to that, I definitely agree with Dave there that you can have separate systems as long as they're integrated and give you one number. I'll give you an example of a company that I saw that it did not happen, where many businesses and many ERP systems run separate from a payroll system. It's frequently that we find it that way. So in this particular company, the ERP system said they have 100 employees and the payroll system said they had 150. Now what? You're blinded.
Absolutely.
I think the big thing is also consolidated reporting, because that's usually you're in a group of companies and you actually want to have one number, one sales number for the group, and you can't actually see that.
Very good point, Paul. Thank you so much. There's another question as well. How do you bridge the gap between requirements of the business and functionality in the selected ERP system?
Well, first step over there is to come in and do a scoping of your business, identify what the requirements are, and then to have a look at what the strengths are of the various ERP systems out there, do a best match. As I say, the more tick boxes you can tick on that ERP system, the less you have to go out and purchase off the shelf. But as I said, I don't think that there is one ERP system out there that ticks all those boxes. But yeah, from that scoping exercise, you can have a better idea of what the requirements are of that business.
Thank you, Dave. I want to ask another question, and Aubrey, I want to put you on the spot. What is the methodology that iPlan uses? So there's all these different ERP systems that are available. As Dave said, It can be a costly exercise. It can be quite difficult to implement. You need the right partner. What is the process that iPlan follows to get you from saying we need something, what do we need, to having that implemented?
Well, Leon, I think you said it there when you used the word process. The whole thrust of what iPlan does is to work at that intersection of the technology, the system, the computer, the database, which are tremendously powerful things, but on their own does not achieve anything. What you need people who are able and knowledgeable to use those powerful tools to do what? The what is defined by the business processes. What are we trying to do? We're trying to run a manufacturing operations. We're trying to run a distribution system. We're trying to link suppliers and clients together. Whatever the business processes are that makes your company unique, that's what you use the systems for. So we bring it together to that intersection of processes, the people in your business that use the technology to pursue those processes. Processes, people, and technology.
Aubrey, thank you so much. And thank you so much to the whole team. I want to ask, just to make sure, be sure, if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to still post them in the chat box. If not, those 2 links are there that Nico posted, more information. You can also book a meeting if you are unsure of the next step. So you may be thinking, I am uneasy about this, I just don't know enough, what do I do? The suggestion is click on that link, book a meeting, and get the right information from the specialists. So thank you for being here today, for being online and with the team. We are definitely looking forward to bring you more information. Please let us know what the next piece of information is that you want. The biggest thing is that we throw all these terms around, ERP, etc., etc. What does it mean and how will it add to my bottom line? How will it help me to make better decisions? So we'd love to hear from you to know exactly what you're looking for. We trust you'll have a fantastic day and we are looking forward to connecting with you soon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.